Hi and welcome to Obviously Queer with me, Katja, and welcome to my first video in like 4 months due to the fact that I didn't have any ideas. But then I binged Heartstopper season 2 and obviously I loved it because I'm not a difficult person. And as you do when you love something, I went to Tumblr, Twitter, and TikTok to see what people disliked about it. I don't like talking about things that I love. I like finding other people's wrong opinions about the things that I love and then talk about why they are wrong. In my search for the Heartstopper drama, it quickly became clear that people's unpopular opinion about this highly popular show, apart from the fact that people find it cringe,
I did not care for The Godfather.
What?
Did not care for The Godfather.
How can you even say that, Dad?
Didn't like it.
Peter, it's...
and only about being gay, is that people find the lack of sex and teenage lust unrealistic and therefore poor representation. The UK Independent posted an article by Sproull titled "Netflix Heartstopper is a sweet queer coming-of-age drama, but are teens really this well-behaved?" Sproull has previously written a defense piece for Just Like That, so it is clear we shouldn't take anything he says seriously. But to answer Sproull's question, no, they're not. Teens are generally rougher, nastier, and less well-spoken, and less politically correct than the ensemble of Heartstopper. Where I and Sproull disagree is how that affects the quality of the show and the value and importance of its representation. He thinks the lack of sex is a weakness for the show. I think it's a strength. Because even though the comment field of this article is brutal in its backlash, as it should be, Sproull isn't alone to critique the lack of sex in Heartstopper. People find it too puritanical and accidentally pretty conservative. Popular queer YouTuber VerilyBitchie critiqued season 1 of Heartstopper with the same argumentation.
Every main character is paired into a relationship. They're all thin and beautiful and gender conforming, and none appear to have ever experienced sexual desire in their life so far because, as we know, 16-year-old boys are infinitely chaste.
And she made a new Patreon video about season 2, which I think hold the same kind of views. I'm not gonna comment on that video since it's not a public video. I'm gonna talk about the season 1 critique.
Where is the line between good representation and just gay streaming? It's sanitized, it's depoliticized, it's designed for the broadest possible audience because Netflix has got to bring in those dollar bills, you know?
Because that critique, both from Sproull and VerilyBitchie, is really about the same thing. Heartstopper isn't authentic representation. It's censored and sanitized. A made-up version of queerness adjusted after what the broader public can feel comfortable with. The critique is coming from an older generation of queers, and that's not coincidental. There is a divide between millennial queers and Gen Z gays that plays a role in why the lack of sex is provoking to some parts of the older generation. I believe that comes from a valid concern about what's happening with queer TV at the moment, and valid concerns about a new wave of queers with more puritanical and stereotypical conservative beliefs. I will go deeper into what I mean by this later in the video, but first I want to go through some of the criticism of the topical article by Sproull. Especially, Nick and Charlie's relationship is strictly romantic, to the extent that the lack of under-the-shirt stuff feels unrealistic. The fact that neither of them even raises the idea of doing something more just rings false. Heartstopper is denying itself the opportunity to authentically represent Gen Z queerness. To start my own argumentation, I want to quote this Twitter reply. But also, 1, this is a show rated TV 14 because it's not made for adults. 2, that neither of them raises the idea is straight up incorrect, they do. And 3, sure, Nick and Charlie aren't having sex, but these two, I don't think it's so TV 14 under that cover. And 4, teen gays are literally fucking in every other TV show. Nick and Charlie are 15 and 16, one with obvious body image issues and one who figured out he wasn't straight 2 months ago. And they want to wait. Something they feel comfortable and safe enough to do and can say that to each other. If you find that false, maybe we should think about what that says about our society. Heartstopper is a show that has moved so many people. It is unapologetically showing queer love being wholesome, innocent, and slow. It's loved because queers are used to seeing queer representation being either overly sexualized or tragic. The fact that this show is choosing another way to show gay men and love than what we are used to seeing in this sex-obsessed society is so refreshing, brave, and highly appreciated in the community. Patrick Sproull's question of, are teens really this well-behaved? Are a valid question. And the answer is once again, no. The majority of teens would not shout,
something definitely happened.
Did you kiss? It would be like, you're gonna suck his dick. But there are also teens who would not. I'm not only talking about the group of aro, ace, and demisexuals who are seeing themselves being portrayed in popular culture TV in Heartstopper, but also those other teens who are just well behaved. I mean, they do exist. Have you met a group of nerdy 15-year-olds who are like studying musical theater? Sure, it's not the majority, but the majority is constantly being portrayed. We are so used to seeing one type of teen on TV, or thinking that the way we were at 15 is equal to everyone's experience, that something else do seem false. But like, even apart from that, say that we decided Heartstopper is unrealistic. I mean, in many other aspects, I do think that it is unrealistic. I mean, just take the scene with Elle and her art revelation scene. Like, why was her art covered and no one else's? This random girl who's just gonna start there? That was so overdramatic and obviously not realistic. Say it's unrealistic. The scene with Nick and Charlie having the talk is unrealistic.
I do like it. It's just, I'm not sure I'm ready to do anything more than kissing.
No, I didn't think we did that.
That isn't how it played out or would play out for the majority of teens. But I swear to God, it's how a lot of teens wish it would have played out. Alice Oseman has created a fictional world where the sexual pressure that surrounds all teens is magically gone. She's created a queer world where teens and adults get to see and experience the youth they wish that they had. Heartstopper isn't created with a goal to be realistic. It's a queer show made by queers for queers with a goal to be a romantic feel-good escape. And to be serious, the sexual pressure put on men today and through history is crushing. This affects gay men in a way. It's a dating world that puts sex above everything else, makes spaces for anonymous sex, and a community that has a growing real issue with chemsex addiction. And not all of the things I mentioned are bad, of course, but it does leave very little room for the gay men who want and need something different. Alice Oseman showing that something different to be seen by young gays and old gays have been a cathartic experience for the majority of people who watched it.
It's like a different like thing. It's just I'm just so happy that they're happy. Like it's there. They are my life. It's fine. They are my kids. No, don't.
Yeah, so there you have the rant about why I think the lack of sex in Heartstopper is not Puritan propaganda, but in fact a great queer representation. But as said, many people, like VerilyBitchie, don't see it that way, but instead see it as a washed out, shallow and performative queer representation. Why is that? And do they have some good points? Part 2. Millennial queers versus Gen Z gays. So, even though I disagree with mentioned opinions and agree with I know what Sproull and VerilyBitchie are trying to say. The critique of the lack of sex as a problem is coming from older gays, as mentioned. Millennium queers, mostly. At first, you might think that's weird, like... But I believe it's not about wanting to see the deed, but a fear of the media having a kind of moral backlash. We are experiencing a rise in queer TV. More shows and films than ever are being produced. The thing is just, they're all with good-looking homosexual men who behave according to heterosexual ideas of relationship and gender. They are made for a new, profitable demographic: women. This is affecting authentic representation and the possibilities for diverse representation. I know someone who's made a great video about that. I'll link it below and here. A comment on Sproull's article says exactly that. I agree with this article a lot, and it was so weird to see the frankly immature backlash on Twitter. No one is asking for graphic on-screen sex, but to completely sidestep it just rings hollow, especially when the two leads are supposed to be teen boys. I guess that's what happens when it's a story about gay males written by a woman, and 95% of the fan base are also young women. Some behavior just doesn't read as real. The number one critique I've seen from actual gay men is that it's simply not relatable to them or their experiences, but clearly they weren't the intended demographic either. The thing is, with this comment, is that Alice Osman is an ace person. This isn't a random heterosexual woman writing about cute boys. This is a queer person writing about a romanticized, sure, but achievable reality where everyone is queer and unaffected by sexual pressure, with the goal to be both comforting and educational. So that is a fact. But with that said, we can also hold the fact in our head that Heartstopper is as popular as it is because it is about two cute boys. It holds a diverse cast with unique and authentic representation, but it would never reach Netflix and its viral status without having two cute boys as lead characters. But that's a universal patriarchal problem. Heartstopper is popular due to it being MLM, but it's still not sanitized for the heterosexual demographic. It doesn't lack sex because queer lust would be uncomfortable for the heterosexual viewers. It lacks queer lust because it is written by an aro-ace person who wanted to write an exploration of love without the limitations that sex puts on the real world, and therefore all other teen media. But when, for example, VerilyBitchie talks about how Heartstopper is adjusted and created for the heterosexual demographic,
Heartstopper is just perfect. It's good representation. They're all respectable teens who've never had an impure thought or drank alcohol or even uttered a swear word. They're definitely getting into heaven.
And Sproull see the show being safe, smiling and unproblematic as an issue. I can understand why they would think so, because it is a valid concern considering other queer representation in today's media climate. And it is reminiscent of the way queers in the past often had to become safe and unproblematic to be allowed visibility both in media and in real life. Sproull, unfortunately, writes a lot about Gen Z without knowing anything about Gen Z. He says coming out isn't an issue anymore, which is incorrect, and that fewer and fewer people cling to labels nowadays, which is the opposite of what's happening at the moment, as well describing the new generation as more sexually liberated. And the latter, sure, is true in a lot of cases and aspects. But we are also experiencing what is called in the discourse as a Gen Z Puritan wave. And even though Sproull's critique isn't mirroring that discourse, VerilyBitchie's sure is, as well as many of Sproull's supporters. Because Heartstopper, as well as Heartstopper's success story, fits that discourse, that we are experiencing a Gen Z Puritan wave. I'm talking about, for example, there is a quite large discourse on the internet about age gaps, with Gen Z leading the discourse on what age gaps are problematic. Many Gen Z gays are taking up the fight of no kings at Pride, trying to make Pride more sanitized. Huge fandom sites are being criticized for allowing problematic relationships, and fans are demanding cancellation of private people's fanfiction. A Puritan kind of trend where Gen Z wants to clean up the gay community and make it non-problematic. And of course, this isn't all Gen Z, this is a minority. But occasionally, it is a quite loud minority. This is seen as a problem by Millennials and a lot of other Gen Z too, of course. It's similar to the shit gays have been protesting against for the last 40 years, and it is very close to the dangerous conservative argumentation of protect the children. When shows like Heartstopper, a show portraying Gen Z in a way that suits this new wave of clean queerness, arises, and is loved and praised within the community, I don't find it odd that older queers like VerilyBitchie and her followers see that as a kind of red flag. So is Heartstopper just Puritan propaganda? Well, no. Heartstopper is a queer manifesto written by an ace person that critiques our sex-obsessed society by using consent, love, and happiness. Featuring, in popular culture, an aro ace guy. It's a guidebook to young queers and a well-executed fantasy to old queers. It's like a little box of candy. It's like a gift. The critique against Heartstopper being that it's only about being gay, being cringe, or people criticizing for the lack of sex is a minority. As I said, I love looking for the drama in things that I like and then critiquing that, but there wasn't a lot. So I'm like really fishing for the hate for Heartstopper. So overall, I think that's what I have to say about it. As I'm always saying, I don't have an uploading schedule because that makes me stressed and I'd rather not be stressed. But I am gonna say that I've written a script. It's like 12 pages, so it's gonna be like a long video that I'm calling Is TV and TikTok Killing the Slow Burn? Which is, yeah, what it sounds like, a video about what's happening to the trope and the term slow burn in today's media climate. I don't think you wanna miss it because I think it's gonna be really interesting. If you like this video, please consider doing a thumbs up and a comment. I love hearing what you guys have to say about it. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you around eventually.